Okay, what I'm going to begin with is we are doing DMA 60, and I'm going to work through the review quiz, showing you how to go about working and solving each of these various questions. They're all going to be in a random order, but you will still see all of the same questions when you do take the quiz. This is to factor the trinomial. So we have 24x plus 9x squared plus 16. They give us 24x plus 9x squared plus 16. The first thing with factoring is your trinomial needs to be in descending order, ax squared plus bx plus c. This is not in the correct order, so we want to check the order, and for ours we need to adjust it. So that's 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. Now it's in descending order of x squared, x, and then your numeral. The next thing you ask yourself is there a greatest common factor for 9, 24, and 16? Well, they're not all even, and the only other factor this would have would be 3. 3 goes into 24, but it doesn't go into 16. So in this case, there's not a greatest common factor. What we're going to do is we're going to use the calculator method, and on y1, we're going to multiply a times c, and that value we're going to divide by x. On y2, we're going to have y1 plus x. So as I get ready to get started, I'm going to draw my two parentheses for factoring. They're both going to start with x. If you have a leading coefficient here, which is a 9, an a value, we're going to go ahead and write that down on our paper before we even pick up our calculator. Now here I'm not going to list out all of the steps. All the steps are listed in great detail in sections 9 through 12. I'm just trying to do a quick run through of the quiz, and I'll jot down just a couple of key things here on the side. So once we have gotten this keyed in, what we're going to do is we're going to use the function second table, and we're going to look in the third column for the b. The b is the middle number. Then what you have is the answer from column 1 will go here. The answer for column 2 will go here. If there was an a value, that would be at the beginning, and then at the end we would simplify. Now this is an oversimplified version of it, but it's enough that after you've done sections 9 through 12, that'll jog your memory as you're doing this. Okay, so let's go to our calculator. What we're going to do is multiply 9 times 16, that was our A and our C. That gives us 144. So go to y equals, and on y1, we're going to do 144 divided by x. We're going to go down to the second row, and we want this to show y1. There's two ways you can do it. I'm going to show you both. You could press vars, arrow right, enter 2 times, and that makes the y1 show up, and then you can do plus x. Once we key this in, this can stay throughout the process of doing all the factoring problems. Another way to get y1 is if you press alpha and trace. Notice here what pops up. Let's choose number 1 and then put plus x. So that's two different ways you can make the y1 show up and then do plus x. Now we do second table. Now keep the black cursor here. Do not move it over. If you were to move it over and you try to go upward, it stops and it won't go any further, and you'll think something's wrong with your calculator. If it's in the first column, it'll continue to move. What we're going to do is let our eyes come to the third column, and we're looking for the middle number, which was a positive 24. So I need to scroll down a little bit. Okay, so when I look in the third column, I do find a 24. The numbers in the first two columns are what we're going to use in our parentheses. This is a positive 12, that's a positive 12. So here I've got x plus 12, x plus 12. The two fractions can be reduced. You can divide them both by 3, and that leaves us with 4/3. And in the final part, as we get our final solution, we want to take the denominator and put it in front of the x. So my final solution would be written as 3x plus 4. I could put squared, or I can just go ahead and write it 2 times. Either way, okay? So that's your first factoring problem. A majority of this test is factoring. This is a multiplication. 9x, x squared plus 6x minus 8. 9x squared plus 6x minus 8. This just says multiply. So that means we're going to use the distributive property. And when you use the distributive property, pay attention to those properties of exponents. So 9x times x squared is 9x to the 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to do 9x times 6x. 9 times 6 is 54. And 1x and another 1x, 1 and 1, gives me 2. Now we have 9x times negative 8. That's, oh, excuse me, there's my x. Don't forget the x, because it will mark you wrong if you forget to write the x. Hang on. Bear with me a moment. Let me make it look a little neater. X squared. And then we have 9 times negative 8 is negative 72. And don't forget to include the x. At that point, you just stop. There's nothing else to combine there. Factor the 4-term polynomial by grouping. Now, there is a special way to factor when you have 4 terms. So let me show you that. We have 10x to the 5th plus 6x. 10x to the 6th plus, oh, wait a minute. 10x to the 5th plus 6x. 10x to the 5th plus 6x. Then we have minus 25x to the 4th minus 15. Okay, so as we begin here, when we have factoring with 4 terms, 4-term is factor by grouping. Now this is a special way, and please don't use parentheses. Don't use parentheses here. I'm going to use just a little squiggly line beneath. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first group the first 2, the last 2, and I will always use the sign that's here in the middle. So let's look at just basic factoring of a common factor. These 2 terms here have a common factor of 2. They both have a common factor of an x. When I take 2 away from 10, I'm left with 5, and 1x from 5 leaves me with x to the 4th. 2 goes into 6 3 times, and the x itself cancels out. Here they have a minus, so we're going to use a minus. These 2 have a common factor of the number 5. When I factor 5 from 25, that leaves me with 5, and I still have x to the 4th. 5 from the negative 15 is going to be a positive 3. Negative and positive is negative. Negative times positive is negative. You can always double check to be sure your signs are correct. Now, to do our final answer, our answer is going to be in 2 parentheses. Notice these 2 are the same. That means they are the common factor. Those 2 that are alike. So one of our parentheses is going to be 5x to the 4th plus 3. And then I want you to notice what we factored out in front, that 2x minus 5 is going to make our second factor. Now this 4 terms is completely factored. What it is if you look at this, isn't this a binomial and a binomial? If we FOILed it, we would get the answer that we had at the top. So what we're doing is we're taking an answer and reworking it so that we get it into the 2 factors to be multiplied that gave us that solution. simplify the expression. Okay, so we have A, B, -2, -4. So we have an A, a B, a -2, -4. In the denominator, we have AB to the third. Now, this is just like the very first section that everyone has already done. Remember, the rule is if you have a power to a power, you multiply. If you have A to the M to the N, that means you multiply M times N. So for my A, negative and negative gives me a positive 8. For my B, 1 times -4 is -4. In the denominator, 1 times -4 is -4. And for the B, 3 times -4 is -12. Now, when you have a quotient, a division, what you do now is you take the top exponent and subtract the bottom exponent. This is where you need to be careful. I want you to use your calculator so that you don't make errors on these. So for the A, you're going to have 8 minus -4. And for the B, you're going to have -4 minus -12. 8 minus -4 and -4 minus -12. So let's use our calculator here. We have 8 minus -4. That gives us positive 12. And then -4 minus -12 is going to give us a positive 8. And then this would be our final solution. Okay. As we continue, this is an addition problem. Okay, so we have x squared plus 2xy minus y squared. X squared plus 2xy minus y squared. And then there's an addition sign. And we have 3x squared, -7, positive 19. 3, -7, positive 19. So 3x squared minus 7xy plus 19y squared. When we have an addition like this, what we're going to start with is we are going to drop the parentheses. We don't need those. So x squared, xy minus y squared plus 3x squared minus 7xy plus 19y squared. Once we've done so, our next step is to simply combine like terms. This is like dma40. So I'm going to start with my x squared. We have, that's an understood 1x squared and 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, x squared. Then I'm going to do my xy's. A positive 2 and a -7. 2 minus 7 is -5, xy. And then last, this is an understood -1 plus 19, which gives me plus 18 y squared. And you're done. There's nothing else that you can do. It's a simple addition. We dropped the parenthesis and we combined our like terms. Solve the equation. X squared minus 5x equals 24. X squared minus 5x equals 24. And they want us to solve. They want the answer x equals. So this is actually section 13. For this, what you do is you factor, just like you do in sections 9, 10, 11, and 12. In order to factor, we're going to put this in the correct form. The 24 is going to move to the left side of the equals, and then it's going to be set equal to 0. We're going to factor this into two parentheses equal to 0. They both start with x. There is no leading coefficient. There is no greatest common factor. So 1 times negative 24, when we use our calculator, we're going to start with here, we're going to have negative 24 divided by x. Then we do second table. We look in the third column and our middle number was a negative 5. So here's the negative 5. Not positive, negative. Because if you notice, the signs on the numbers are different. So we're using the negative 5. That gives us a plus 3 and a minus 8. So an x plus 3 and an x minus 8. To get our solutions, we take each factor and we set each factor equal to 0. To solve the first one, I subtract 3 on both sides and x equals negative 3. For the other one, I move the 8 over and my x is equal to 8. So when you give your answer for this, you're just going to type in the two numbers, negative 3 and an 8, and put a comma to separate the two. Add or subtract as indicated. Okay, 2x squared plus 5x minus 1. 2x squared plus 5x minus 1. Then we have 5x squared plus 7x plus 12. 5x squared plus 7x plus 12. And then we have a minus 7x squared minus 15. Okay, so for the first two here and here, you're going to drop the parenthesis. But when you get to the subtraction here, you're going to distribute negative 1 to remove the parenthesis here. Okay, so we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 plus 5x squared plus 7x plus 12. Everything in the first two I just copied. Now here, negative and positive makes that minus 7x squared. Negative times negative is going to make this a plus 15. At this point, all we have to do now is combine like terms. Once we changed the signs, distributed that negative 1 after the minus, we're all good to go. So what we have is 2 plus 5 is 7x squared. 7x squared minus 7x squared is a 0. So all of that completely cancels. Then I have 5x plus 7x. 5 plus 7 is going to give me 12x. Last, I have negative 1 plus 12 plus 15. So 15 and 12 give me 27, and 27 minus 1 leaves me with 26. And you can just use your calculator to key those in. At this point, you're finished. There's no more to do. Okay, let's move on. Next, we have determine whether the trinomial is a perfect trinomial square. M squared minus 16m plus 64. M squared minus 16m plus 64. In order to determine if something is a trinomial square, so what we want is a yes or no. And the question is this a trinomial square? Okay, so if I take the number 1 that's here, the square root of 1 is a 1. So the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 64 is 8. Okay? So what you do is you take the square root of A, and you take the square root of C. Those two answers that you get, we're going to multiply the solutions and double it. So you're going to multiply the solutions and double it. When you double it, that means it's times 2. So we have 1 times 8 times 2. That gives me 16. If it's the middle number, then your answer is yes, it's a trinomial square. So for this one, yes, it is. If the middle number had been, say, 12, and I did 1 times 8 times 2, if this number is not 12, if the middle number is not this number that's doubled, then it's not a trinomial square. Find the degree of the polynomial and determine whether it's a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or none of these. Okay. So we have 12x to the 5th minus, well, at the end we had a 12x to the 6th. In the middle is a minus x squared. So first they want to know what is the degree of this trinomial. The degree is the largest exponent. And the largest exponent here is the 6. So the degree is 6. Is it a monomial, binomial, or trinomial? Monomial has 1 term, binomial has 2 terms, trinomial has 3 terms. So for this one, it is a trinomial. Evaluate the expression using exponent rules. Write the result in standard notation. Okay. Okay, so we want to simplify and we want to write in standard notation. What I do first is this. I like to take the 4 divided by 8. So let's come here to our calculator, and we are simply going to do 4 divided by 8. That gives us an answer of 0.5. So that's a 0.5 times 10. Now, remember we subtract the exponents. So that's going to be -2 minus 3. So use your calculator. -2 minus 3 gives me an exponent of -5. So what we're going to do, this is almost scientific notation, but we want it in standard notation. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 5. The decimal is here in the original. And since the exponent is -5, we're going to move left 5 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You still have to put your decimal at the beginning, and then inside each of the waves, we're going to fill in zeros, and this first one here, that is going to be removed. You do not include it in the answer because it moved to the left in front. So you'd end up with just 0.000005. Multiply. 6y squared minus 5. 6y squared minus 5. And a 6y squared plus 5. What we're going to do when we multiply is we are going to FOIL. Our first is going to be 6y squared, which is 36y to the fourth. My outside is going to be 6y squared plus 5 is going to be a plus 30y squared. The inside is going to be a negative 30y squared, and the last is negative times positive, which is a minus 25. Once we have now FOILed, our next step is that we are going to combine like terms. These are the two like terms in the middle, a plus 30y squared and a minus 30y squared. What happens is they cancel each other out, and your final answer is 30y to the fourth minus 25. We still have just another couple of moments, so let's do another one or two more. Factor the trinomial completely. If this trinomial contains a greatest common factor other than 1, don't forget to factor out the GCF first. Okay, we have an x, a negative 3, and a negative 40. So x squared, negative 3xy, and then we have minus 40y squared. Now for this one, it's in the correct order. So the order is correct for this one. It's different because we have an x squared at the front and a y squared at the end, but the order is correct. There is no greatest common factor, so we're going to factor into two parentheses. For this one, they're both going to start with an x because of the x squared, but they're also going to both end with a y because there's a y squared at the end. Okay? So if we go to y1 on the calculator, we would have 1 times negative 40, so we have negative 40 divided by x. We still have on y2 that y1 plus x, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for a negative 3 in that third column. So let's come do that. So here on y equals, clear, I'm going to do negative 40 divided by x. Second table, I'm going to let my eye come to this third column. Here's a 3, but it's positive. Let's keep looking. Here we go. Here's the negative 3. So what I need is a minus 8 and a plus 5. So here inside, I'm going to type in a minus 8 and a plus 5. And I'm finished. It is now factored completely. I think we have time to do one more. And here, factor the following binomial completely. X squared minus 144. X squared minus 144. It's in the right order. We're going to factor it into two terms. They're both going to start with x. Now, let me make note. When we look at ax squared plus bx plus c, we have a missing term. So technically, we have x squared, and then here's the minus 144. In the middle, what is missing is, in essence, a plus 0x. So when I'm looking for the b in the third column, we're going to be looking for a 0. So on y1, we're going to have negative 144 divided by x. On y2, we're going to still have y1 plus x. And when we do second table, we are going to look for a 0 in the third column because our b is a 0. So let's come here. We're going to clear. We have negative 144 divided by, negative 144 divided by x, second table. We're looking in the third column, and here's our 0 because there's no middle term. So we have a negative 12 and a positive 12. So here's our solution, x plus 12 and an x minus 12. Okay? So we're going to stop here, and actually we're at about halfway through.